Excellent. Thank you very much, Anne. And a very good afternoon to you all. Hope you are all very good and well. Today's session is all about using Facebook's algorithm, how we can utilize Facebook's algorithm to help us to get the most out of social media. So this is the algorithm, something that we hear a lot about. It's something that we see in the news a lot. It's something that we hear about, we see lots of posts about it. It's something that controls near enough every aspect of our social media. It's something that defines success for us as a business in many ways. But a lot of the time, it's something that a lot of people don't really know too much about. Now, my role, I'm a social media trainer and speaker. So my job, I go out to businesses. I work with other companies, businesses, helping them to understand how they can get more out of their social media, how they can grow their business. And one of the things that comes up time and time again is the algorithm. A lot of people that I speak to see the algorithm as being the enemy, as being something that stops them from being able to achieve success on social media. I see some people, I see talks, I see people, articles where they talk about how to hack the algorithm, how to break the algorithm, how to beat it. That's not what this session is about. If you understand how it works, the algorithm on Facebook and across all social media platforms can be a very powerful ally. And in fact, success on social media doesn't lie with beating the algorithm. It lies with working with it. And that's exactly what I'm going to share with you over the next 40 minutes or so, is how you can understand how the algorithm works and therefore use it to your advantage. But before we do that, I do have a question that I would like to share with you all. And I think we've got a poll question set up for it. And the question is this. What is the most important measure of success for a post on social media? So this is, in your opinion, what is the most important measure of success for a post on social media? Is it the engagements? Is it the comments, the likes, the shares? Or is it the reach, how far the post goes? Is it how many new followers that you get from the post? Is it how many private messages you get off the back of it? Or is it something else entirely? So in your opinion, what is the most important measure of success for your posts on social media platforms? And some great results there. So 70% of you talking, believe it's engagements, those comments, likes, and shares. Just over 20% saying it's the reach, 3% saying new followers, and 6% saying something else. Overwhelming majority there for the engagements, it appears. And that's very interesting, and that's the kind of thing that I would expect to see. I'm going to challenge that though, and if I was voting in that, I would answer the real answer is reach. And the reason for that is that the reach of your post, that is a measure of how many people have been shown your content. That's the way to think about reach. Engagement is a measure of how many people have liked it, commented, engaged with the post. It's what people think of a post. Whereas the reach is the measure of how many people have been shown the content. In other words, reach is a measure of how many people Facebook has decided to show your content to. Therefore, if your reach is low, that's an indicator that Facebook doesn't like your content for some reason. There is something that Facebook has decided, no, I'm not going to show this post to someone else or to other people. And if the reach is low, it's going to be very difficult for you to then generate and actually obtain any to obtain those engagements. So reach is a critical component. If we don't have our reach, we can't get anything else. And in order to get our reach, our content needs to work with the algorithm. So what is the algorithm? We hear this a lot. Lots of people have heard of the algorithm in some way, and we see lots of posts on social media. We see lots of things doing the rounds on Facebook that talk about the algorithm. You may be familiar with a post that looks something like this. This is an example of a post that does the rounds quite regularly on Facebook. This is a post that talks about how, as of January or as of any date at some point, Facebook is going to own all of your pictures and it's going to use them, and that you need to copy and paste this status update in order to give you legal protection to stop Facebook from owning your property, so on and so forth. And we see things very similar to this doing the rounds. We see there's another common one that goes around at the moment talking about how the algorithm is limiting it so only 20 people see my posts. If you want to see my posts, you need to copy and paste this, you need to share this, all these kind of things. These posts are a lie. They're not true. There's a whole rafter of factual inaccuracies in these. I mean, for example, this post here that you can see that does the round, it often references, it says the violation of privacy can be punished by law, and it references the Rome Statute. The Rome Statute is actually the treaty that established the international crime and provided an international definition of genocide. So I'm pretty sure that Facebook, I'm not going to comment on what Facebook is and isn't responsible for, but Facebook, to my knowledge, has never been accused of genocide, at least. So the Rome Statute, yeah, there's all sorts of things here that are incorrect, but there is a basis of truth in these. When you see these posts saying, oh, the algorithm is limiting views, there is an element of truth, but I think the interpretation of it is slightly off. So what I would like to do is actually try and break down and explain this algorithm for you and explain to you the process that the algorithm goes through. Every time you as a user, and therefore every time your customers, your users, open Facebook, what process does the algorithm go through in order to decide what content they see? Because fundamentally, that's what the algorithm does. There's too much content out there in the world being posted on a daily basis for you to be able to see everything that's posted by all of your friends, by all of the pages that you follow. It's just not possible for you to see everything. So the algorithm is here to decide what content you see. And it's in the algorithm's best interests that you see good content. So the algorithm is actively trying to find the best content, the most relevant content for you as a user, you as an individual. If you want to be a bit cynical about it, there's the argument that the better the quality of content you see, the more time you spend on Facebook, and because you spend more time on Facebook, there's more opportunities for Facebook to show adverts to you, and therefore Facebook generates more revenue. So if we're being cynical, that is probably the rationale, the reasoning behind why the algorithm does what it does. But these are the 4 steps. So 4 steps that the algorithm will go through every time you or your customer opens Facebook. These 4 steps are inventory, signals, prediction, and score. These are the 4 steps that it goes through. Now, the easiest way for me to explain this is to give you a hypothetical analogy, a slightly different analogy, and I'll bring it back to how Facebook works. So this hypothetical situation, this is my partner, this is my other half, Steph. She's not hypothetical, she's real. But let's say that hypothetically it was her birthday tomorrow and I've not bought her a present. What do I do? Well, I panic. That's the first thing I'll do. And then once I've done that, once I've finished panicking, I need to sneak out of the house and I need to get to a shop. I need to buy something. It's too late in the day for me to order something online. I need to actually do it the old-fashioned way and go to a shop and buy something. So I go to a shop, and this is where I do step 1, the inventory. I look around that shop and I see what products they have for sale. There's no point in me saying that I'm going to buy her a llama onesie if that shop isn't selling that product. So I need to do an inventory, a stock check, to see what things I've got to choose from. So step 1 is my inventory, going to my shop and having a look at what's for sale. Next, I need to consider my signals. So the signals are the things that are going to have an impact, an influence on my purchase decision, but are not related to her opinions, her feelings. So that's what a signal is. So for example, what budget have I set? How much am I going to spend? Is it a significant milestone birthday, or is it in between one, like 26? What colours are in fashion this year? What fashion trends are on start? You know, what's fashionable? What trends are hot right now? What bands are popular? What films are popular? It could be considerations like, how have I gone to that shop? If I've gone by public transport, then I can't get anything that's too heavy, too awkward to carry, because I won't be able to carry it back on the bus. If I've had to travel a long way and it's a hot day, I can't buy anything that needs to be kept frozen. So my signals, my things that have nothing to do with her and her opinions, but it's still going to have a feed and impact on my purchase decision. I then consider my predictions. So my predictions, this is when I now start to consider Steph and her thoughts and her opinions. So whereas a signal would have been what colours are on trend this year, a prediction would be what colours is Steph wearing at the moment, what's in her wardrobe. So what has she been talking about? What has she been looking at online? When we went out the other day and she stopped to look in a shop window, what was she looking at? What music is she listening to in her car? What films, what television programs is she watching? What is she talking about? What is of interest to her? So, for example, we not long ago moved house. One of the jobs that's on the to-do list is getting some new curtains put up in the guest bedroom. Therefore, that's something that she keeps talking about. She keeps mentioning that it needs doing. Therefore, I predict that a nice drill to help get some holes in the wall so we could put the curtains up, that would be a great present. It's relevant to her, it's something that she's talking about. I then need to combine these things together to score each product. So I need to look at each item in turn, balance out, consider both the signals and the predictions, and score each product. So for example, a diamond necklace. Prediction-wise, she'll love it. It'll be an amazing present. She'd absolutely love that. You know, max points from a prediction perspective. But from a signals perspective, a diamond necklace is way outside my budget. And if I buy her that for her 27th birthday, how on earth am I going to top that when it comes to her 30th birthday? So it's quite low scoring from a signals perspective. So on balance, it's not a great score. Whereas this drill here, it's within my price range, it's within my budget. I can carry it home on the bus easily enough. And it's a really useful, practical thing for something that she's talking about a lot at the moment. So it does well in both a signals and a prediction perspective. Therefore, it's something that gets a high score, and that's the present I choose. And in all probability, I'll end up sleeping in the guest room for a few weeks. But that's the process that we go through buying a present, and it's the exact same process when it comes to Facebook's algorithm. You open your phone, you open Facebook. The first thing Facebook do is it will take an inventory. So what posts are there? What has been published by your friends, by the pages that you follow, the groups that you're in? What content has it got to choose from? It then considers the signals. So the things that have nothing to do with you and your behaviors, the things that are happening in the wider world, it considers those. Then it considers the predictions, the things that you have said and done on Facebook, combines them together, and it gives each post what it calls a relevancy score. Your newsfeed then displays that content in order with the highest scoring content at the top. So what are these signals and predictions that it's considering? Well, there's hundreds of them. I have far too many for me to be able to go through today, but just to give you a sample of some of them, let's start off with some signals. So these are the things that are nothing to do with what your user does. It's nothing to do with you personally. If we talk about what you see in your Facebook feed, something to do with your behaviors, it's about what's happening in the wider world. So it might be the age of the content. So how old is this content? Is it a post that's 3 or 4 days old, or was it posted quite recently in the last hour or two? The number of existing engagements. So how many likes has that post got already? How many comments has that post got already? the more that it has, Facebook looks at that and it goes, wow, this post has got 50, 100, 500 likes. That's doing well, especially compared to other posts from this page. Yeah, okay, let's show that to more people because clearly people are interested in it and are engaging with it. The subject matter. Facebook knows what's popular. It knows what's trending. It knows what people are talking about at the moment. So, for example, in the midst of a lockdown, in the midst of this lockdown, any content talking about the lockdown, talking about COVID-19, talking about these restrictions, it picks up on these keywords and it goes, you're contributing something to a conversation that a lot of people are interested in, that a lot of people are engaged in. It recognizes that and will therefore put your content front and center. That's why you can actually benefit. That's why you can get an algorithmic benefit from talking about major sporting events or big TV programs or major film releases. Anything like this, if you can tap into those trending conversations, then that will help the algorithm. You will get an algorithmic boost from that. The post length is another example. So basically, Facebook will do a quality control check on your content, and it will look at things like how long is your post. Now, you've got a character limit of 10,000 characters when it comes to a Facebook post, but that is a limit, not a challenge. Keeping your post short, keeping it under certainly 300 characters, keeping it closer to the length of a tweet even. Shorter content, easier to consume, easier to read. Facebook knows that that's the case. Facebook knows that people find it easier to consume shorter content, therefore it actively promotes that. Does it have an image? Does it have a video attached to it as well? And is that appropriate? There are all sorts of bits and pieces, and we'll talk about imagery in a bit more detail in just a moment. But you need to run with the assumption, for example, with video, that people can't hear, that people are out and about, they're in a public space and they can't hear the video. So does your video have subtitles, captions? Image recognition technology within Facebook scans your images, scans your video to check for those kind of things. And of course, it will look at the performance of previous posts as well. And this is where we can utilize a technique that we refer to as riding the wave. If you have a post that went out today and it does really, really well, Facebook will look at that and go, wow, people like what you're saying right now. The next thing that you post, the next thing that you do, straight from the outset, straight from the start, we're going to show that to more people. So if you get a post that performs really well, that gets a huge amount of engagement, think of yourself as in credit when it comes to the algorithm. The algorithm likes what you've just done. The next thing you do, straight away, it's going to show it to a higher proportion of people than it would usually do. So if you do get that content that performs really well, make sure that you've got something with a very clear, distinct call to action, ready to post afterwards, a day or two after that, should that post do really well. So those are signals. The predictions, meanwhile, are the things about you as an individual user, what you've been doing, what you've been up to. So have you liked any pages recently? Recent likes, the pages that you've recently engaged with, they are going to come up on your algorithm quicker. So if you go on to a brand, if you find a brand and you like that page today, there's a higher likelihood that you'll see content from that page over the next few weeks. Your previous behavior. So what have you said? What have you done? What have you been doing recently? Who have you been engaging? What kind of things have you typically liked in the past? That is going to shape and inform the things that you see in the future. Your posts as well. So the things that you say, the things that you do. If you upload a piece of content talking about your pet dog, then Facebook is going to recognize that as you being interested in dogs. And therefore the content that you see, the things that you see from other people, will be posts from other people talking about their dogs. Your location as well. So if you haven't turned off location tracking services on the Facebook app on your phone, then Facebook will consider this as well. It will know where you are and it will show you content from other people based on that. So, for example, this weekend, as we know, bars and pubs are allowed to reopen. If you're going down to a pub and you see some friends there, obviously from a safe distance, but the location tracking will pick up that you and that friend are in the same location. It will run with the assumption that you probably interact with each other, and you're therefore more likely to see status updates from that friend in the days to follow, because Facebook knows that you've been close to each other. Similarly, if you were being tagged in a friend's post, you would see that the same things as well. And then finally, your recent interactions. So if you interact with certain people, then that is going to inform the content that you see. A great example to illustrate this is you've all probably had a moment when you've opened Facebook and you've seen a post from an old school friend, someone that you've not seen in years, and it's their wedding post. It's a selection of photos from their wedding day. Now, why are you seeing that? You've not spoken to this person, you didn't go to the wedding. Why are you seeing this? Well, the signals are really strong with a post like this, because a wedding is a milestone event. It is the subject matter signal comes into play here. It's a significant event, so Facebook is showing that to lots of people. So you see that wedding post because of the signals mainly. But out of curiosity, you then view those photos. You have a quick flick through. You just want to make sure that your wedding was better than theirs. You want to be a bit nosy. Because you're cycling through those photos, it's now a prediction. You're interacting. And now the algorithm is going to look at that and go, okay, you're interacting with this person. You must be interested in what they're up to. And that's why for the next couple of weeks, you continue to see other posts from this person, from their honeymoon and then onwards like that. It's because you keep looking at the posts. Even though you're not liking or commenting, just clicking through those photos, that will count as a prediction. So that very simply is the algorithm. That is the process that it goes through. Now, these signals, these predictions, they're constantly evolving. They're constantly shifting up and down, moving and evolving. The challenge we have as a business is how can we exploit this? How can we use the algorithm to our advantage? How can we work with it? Well, the easiest way to do that is to modify the signals. The predictions are a lot harder to do. The predictions are based on user behavior, so it's a lot harder for you to make any changes with that and kind of influence that, because it's down to your customers, what they're doing. But what you can do is you can get your posts, get your content in the best possible place it can through thinking about the signals and how Facebook is going to interpret those signals. Take a look at this post here. This is an example of a post here. There's a lot going on with this post. This post is an example of how not to do it. I'm a firm believer that the best way to know how to do something is see how not to do it. And this is definitely a post that does exactly that. So this is a post from a company making dog food, rambling on about how they've come up with a new recipe. And they were inspired by when they went down to Kent for a long weekend in their Ford Escort that was a lovely car with air conditioning and a CD player. Anyway, forget about that. The product's going to be available from next Tuesday. It's a long-winded, horrible post, and the signals would tear this apart. There would be so many negative signals flagged on this post that it would really struggle to perform. It's a long post, first of all. That's quite a long post, and it's not formatted either. There's no line breaks, there's no paragraphs, there's no images or videos with it either. The algorithm picks up on all of these things, and these are all going to be negative points. You've got this "Hey everyone" at the start there. Really weird use of grammar, weird and inconsistent. Something that Facebook will look at is it will look at the language that you use, and it will compare that to the language used by your audience, and it will try and match that up. So if your audience, if you've got an audience and your target audience is, let's say it's a 40+ audience, and you're using language like this in your post, Facebook's going to look at that and go, hang on, the language you're using doesn't match up this target, this audience of 40+ people. Therefore, we're not really going to show it to them because it's not relevant to them. So you need to think about the grammar, the language, the tone that your target audience are going to use. And you ought to try and emulate that. Asking for shares. Please share this post on your Facebook. Facebook gave this this technique, this approach, this asking for interactions a name. They call it engagement baiting, and it will result in an algorithmic penalty. I can't tell you what that is. Facebook don't reveal that kind of information. They don't explain exactly how significant a penalty it is, but they have confirmed that they do penalise content that actively asks for likes, comments, and shares. So do bear that in mind. You want to avoid deviation as well. So this whole middle section that goes rambling on about going to Kent, driving on a Ford Escort. Not only is it really dull and confusing from a user perspective, but it also is a confusing thing for the algorithm, because the algorithm now doesn't actually know what your content is about. That's the problem that it's got, is it doesn't know what your post is talking about. Is it talking about dog food? Is it talking about Kent? Is it talking about cars? And because it can't ascertain what the subject matter is, it's not sure who to show it to. So be careful not to cover too many different points in a single post, because again, it will dilute the signals with the algorithm. Towards the end here, we've got this, you can pre-order it now. The problem with this bit, how? It's an incomplete call to action. You're saying you can pre-order it, but you don't explain how. And again, the algorithm on Facebook is smart enough to pick up on these kind of things. It's smart enough to realize that there are some issues with it, that you're giving unclear instructions in your content. So do be aware of that as well. And then finally, we'll be posting this every hour. It's more of a threat than a promise, this is. This is a tricky one that comes up a lot, is post frequency. How often should you post? Earlier on, I talked about the recency of content being an important signal, and content that is newer and fresher is better than content that's a few days old. You can overdo it though. You can post too much. If you post 2-3 times, 4, 5, more than 3 or 4 times in a day, what will essentially happen is Facebook will look at that 3rd, 4th post and go, well, I've already shown one of these earlier posts from you today to all of these people, so I'm not going to show them the second one. So you're actually limiting the audience that Facebook has got to show this 4th, 5th post to. Alternatively, what it will do is you post out that second post 2 hours after the first one, and Facebook will look at it and go, okay, you've got something new, right, I'll start showing this one. And it actually then stops showing the first one, when potentially there was still some more life in that first post. So 4 or 5 times a week posting on Facebook, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a good consistency to be going with. 4 or 5 times a day, you're potentially going to be starving your own posts and stopping them from reaching their full potential. So if you think that might be an issue that you're having, experiment, slow down your posting frequency for a while and see what happens, see what's a little bit different. There are ways we can influence the predictions though. We talked about the signals, we've got a degree of control over those. Predictions are harder to control because they're related to other users, they're related to your customers, what they're doing, and we can't control what they do. We can, however, do some things to improve the likelihood that they will choose to like it, that they'll choose to engage with a post. And pictures, rich media, is a great way of doing that. Take a look at these 2 images here. In my spare time, I'm a big beer enthusiast. I'm an organizer of National Beer Festival. So there was bound to be a beer-related example that slipped in here. Look at these 2 pictures, both from the same brewery, for a beer from the same series. Both posted on Instagram in this instance, but also posted across onto Facebook as well. Both posted to social media. 2 very, very different images. One of them a lot more interesting to the public than the other. Spoiler alert, it's the one on the right. The one on the left, whilst it is a very effective and descriptive image, very clearly showing us the whole bottle, the whole box, it immediately jumps out as being potentially quite salesy. It's not a natural image, whereas the picture on the right, that could have been taken by someone, could have been taken by anyone. Therefore, psychologically, we are more likely to scroll past that image on the left, in the same way that when we're looking through a magazine, we skip past the full page adverts, because our brain just goes, nope, that's an advert, skip. Magazines are counteracting that by introducing advertorials, paid for pieces of content that are formatted to look like articles to trick you into reading it without realizing it's an advert. Brands are starting to do the same thing on social media now, creating content on the right-hand side there that doesn't immediately look like it's a promotional image. That could easily be just a picture taken by a craft beer enthusiast. This has an impact on the algorithm because the algorithm knows whether people are just scrolling straight past a post or if they're stopping and lingering on the post and spending more time looking at it. Techniques that we can do to create this, to create what we call thumb stopping imagery. There's a couple of different things that we can do, and that thumb stopping element, that getting someone to stop scrolling and look at your photo, that's the key to success. Gets people stopping, lingering at the photo, increases the chances as well that they are going to like and engage with that post. Two images here, both of them same time, same day, same caption as well. Jodie's having a great time learning lots on her Facebook training course. Out of these two images, the one that would generate more engagement would be the one on the right. This image on the right, we're playing with that depth of focus. We've got that blurred background. It intrigues someone. It draws them in. They want to understand a bit more about what's out there. It's an unusual angle and perspective as well. And this is another great technique for creating this thumb-stopping imagery. It's why food bloggers always take photos of their plates of food top down. It's because it's an unusual angle, an unusual perspective. We're not used to seeing something from this angle. Therefore, it takes us longer to process exactly what it is that we're looking at, which means we spend more time looking at the photo, which increases the likelihood that we like the photo, which in turn sends a positive sign and increases the score from an algorithmic perspective. Another great advantage of taking photos kind of in the style on the right-hand side rather than the left is that I don't need the subject's permission to upload the photo on the right, whereas I do on the left. So that's just a side bonus to these kind of techniques. But it's about creating those unusual photos, those things that will take just that little bit longer to decipher and work out. I just want to leave you with a couple of apps that will help you to do this. We haven't got time to go through them all in detail today, but just want to name a couple of them for you to play around with and experiment with, and it will help increase the views and the engagement on your images and therefore improve your algorithmic scores. Legend is a typography app. So this allows you to take a photo of yours and add animated text over the top of it. Completely free to use, very quick way to get some animated text appearing over your as well as that, we've got Snapseed. So Snapseed is a image editing app. Snapseed is an image editing app that allows us to make tweaks and enhancements to our photo, to do things like increasing the brightness, increasing the color saturation, blurring the background, but also increasing the brightness of specific individual elements of a photo as well. So great, in this example you can see here, I can turn the color of that beer from quite a muted yellow to a much more vibrant, standout amber gold, which again, when someone's scrolling through their Facebook feed, it will make them pause, it will pull their attention, increase the likelihood of those likes, and therefore your algorithmic score. Mojo is an app for stories. So we're not really talked too much about stories, Instagram and Facebook stories today, but Mojo is an app that allows you to add some animation, movement, and overlay text to still images to upload to stories. So if you're struggling to get something a bit interesting with your stories, then Mojo is a great way just to add a bit of life and movement to them. Quick which is spelled Quik without the C. This is an app for video creation. So if I mentioned earlier that videos are a really good plus, the algorithm loves video content, especially when it's captioned. If you're struggling to produce any video content at all, but you've got lots of still photos, Quik is a great way for you to take those still photos, turn it into a dynamic slideshow with interesting transitions, and add captions over the top of them as well. So it's great for creating video content that, again, the algorithm is going to like. And there's a whole library of royalty-free for commercial use music available on Quik as well. And finally, one that's probably a bit more common to you, Layout. So Layout is a great collage making tool. Great tool for kind of making collage, combining photos. You can see here a recent trip to Harlech Castle. This castle was this was Harlech. My eyesight was fine. But as well as kind of creating this collage with lots of different images, you can do it to create some quite unusual thumb-stopping effects. So, for example, using Layout, I was able to take that waterfall image and flip and mirror it to create almost this kaleidoscope effect. Again, why does this help the algorithm? Well, someone scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram, they'll look at this and they'll need to stop. They'll need to pause to look at it, to understand exactly what it is they're looking at. And the longer they do that, the higher the chances they're going to interact with it. They might even tap on the photo to expand it. And as soon as they've done that, that's an interaction, and that's a plus point for your algorithmic score. So there you have it, a quick overview of Facebook's algorithm. The algorithm really is a combination of science and art. There is a science behind it. I'm not entirely sure many people, even at Facebook, know the exact details of it. But if you understand this balance of this relationship between signals and predictions, if you can understand how those two things work side by side with the algorithm, what will happen is over time you'll start looking at your content and you'll start thinking about how the algorithm is going to view and reflect that. Remember, the algorithm decides who gets to see your content, and you won't get your engagements unless the algorithm is willing to show your content to other people. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I hope you've found that useful. I don't know if we've got any questions waiting for us, Dan, but yeah, thank you.
Fantastic, David. Really, really insightful session. I don't think I've heard it explained in that way before, and it just really brings it to life, especially with the example of like your personal life. You know, you're looking for a gift and you go through the inventory and all those kind of things. It actually is a nice way to describe it. Didn't mention your beard before, by the way. Yeah, you look a little bit different. Is it? I don't know if it's a lockdown beard or.
It's been a tough 3 months. It's been a hard 3 months.
I quite like it though. Yeah, no, it wasn't a criticism at all. So yeah, we've got a few questions. So question from Christine. Do you recommend photos over graphics with text every time, or is there a time to use text?
There is always a time to use text. Using text graphics can be a great way to really make a point stand out. Facebook isn't a huge fan of it though. It's not to say that it's a bad thing to do, but I mean, Facebook say that they will, anyone that's run ads on Facebook in the past will know that if your image contains more than 20% text, Facebook ads has a huge issue with that and tries to stop you doing it. That kind of feeds through to the algorithm with organic content as well. It's not going to stop your post going out, but if your content feed is constantly text graphic after text graphic after text graphic, that's when you start going to have issues. So by all means do use them, but I would definitely intersperse it amongst images that are image focused rather than text focused.
So for organic posts, is the 20% text still relevant, or is that just for the ads? Because they won't let you, or it won't show the ad as effectively, will it, if you have more than 20% text?
The 20% rule is a rule specifically for ads.
Okay,
it's an ad specific rule. a lot of people say that it's generally, and my practice, my experience has shown that it's a good rule of thumb to go to gauge your organic content. But if you occasionally, as I say, if you occasionally, you've got a sale on or something like that, and you want to put out a graphic that is text heavy, don't be afraid to do it just because of that one thing. It's one signal. The algorithm is made up of hundreds of signals and predictions. That's why you still see posts that say like and share this post, even though that's a negative on the algorithm. You still see them because it's just one in a huge mass of different signals and predictions.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. So question from Victoria. I work for a local authority, so lots of people posting content. How would that affect the algorithm? I guess if it's all on the same account, I guess if it's like if you've got one profile and you've got many different people posting content to the same profile, I guess.
Yeah, so this can cause issues. So if you've got one page and there's lots of different people all adding content to it, it can cause algorithmic issues, because if you've got quite significant differences in style and approaches, the algorithm is going to look at that and again start getting a bit confused by, hang on, this is wildly different to the last thing you said. I don't know who to show this to, and it can get quite confusing. A couple of ways around this. One option is to have an editor, essentially. So all of the people that want to post things, they upload them to a shared spreadsheet, a shared document, and then you've got one person centrally who's responsible for editing all of that content to give it a consistency and then scheduling it onto the platform. The alternative is to put together a style guide and to put together a document that kind of says, these are the words we do use, these are the words we don't use, these are ways in which we refer to X, Y, Z. Distribute that around your team, everyone who's contributing, and encourage people to kind of follow that style guide to try and maintain some consistency in your content approach.
But if it was multiple people posting to multiple pages, I guess it's less of an issue. So maybe one person is responsible for a page, another person is responsible for another page. Then
it will be less of an issue there, because even if it's different pages, for a local authority, one about libraries, one about rubbish collection. In the view of Facebook, those are separate businesses, they're separate brands, they're separate pages. The algorithm will treat each of them separately. So it's less of an issue in that case.
Great. So quite a few questions coming in, so bear with me for a second. Question from Richard. Isn't it best to use impressions rather than reach? Because reach on Twitter and other platforms is different, isn't it? So I guess that's a question about actually how the naming and things like that. Is it impressions? Is it reach?
So reach and impressions, two numbers that get interchanged quite a lot. And as Richard said there, different platforms report different metrics. Reach is the number of people to whom the content has been shown. Impressions is the number of times the content has been shown. So if I opened Facebook and I see a post from Crowd Control, that's one reach, one impression. If I close Facebook, come back 10 minutes later, open it again and see that post again, the reach remains one because I'm the same user, but it's two impressions. So that's the difference with it. I think there's a whole separate lecture on reach versus impressions, really. It kind of comes down to your own business and your own business objective. What are you looking to achieve? Are you looking to reach as many people as possible and build up that awareness? Or are you looking to drive a message home with a smaller group of people? Depending on what your business outcome is and what your business goal is, reach or impressions may be more suitable for you. If you dig around enough, you can find both metrics on most platforms, but they do tend to hide one or the other, which is a lovely frustration for us social media managers.
Especially when you're trying to compare the two, and actually you're not measuring exactly the same thing. So it's like, oh, here's the stats, but take it with a pinch of salt sometimes.
And if you're reporting to stakeholders outside of a marketing team, do kind of explain that difference and explain that you are essentially comparing apples and oranges here, and that reach and impressions are fundamentally different things.
Got you. Question from Laura: can emoji use have a negative effect on the algorithm?
I Really interesting question. The question of emojis and the impact on it. Again, it's similar to what I was saying about the "Hey everyone" in that example of a bad post. It's a case of, is your audience actively using those? If you're using similar kind of emojis to your target audience, and again, Facebook is going to look at that as being, yeah, there's an affinity there. It's similar style content. That's a good thing. Another thing to consider as well, and this is kind of similar to what I was discussing about using images, is that emojis can work very effectively as that kind of that thumb stopper, that thing to stop someone from scrolling. Those emojis, the color in those emojis catch someone's eye, catches their attention. Some brands, depending on the nature of the brands, they can take ownership of the more unusual emojis. And again, that's really, it's a good thing. So for example, if there was a marketing company called Top Banana Marketing or something like that, and they regularly use the banana emoji, that's a more unusual emoji. We don't see that in our feeds as often. Therefore, it's going to be a shinier item. As we're scrolling through, it's going to catch our attention a bit more. So if you're thinking about it, if it's suitable, if it's appropriate for your brand, have a look through all of the emojis and see if there is something a bit more unusual that you kind of almost take ownership, that aligns with your brand style or your products, that you can use just to kind of help your post stand out that little bit more.
Brilliant. Makes a lot of sense. I know we're just over time, so there was a few more questions, but unfortunately, David, we haven't got the time because we do need to try to stick to the schedule so people can jump off when they need to. But just want to say massive thanks for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.